US inflation is so high and when it may ease. Inflation has settled in and economists are now voicing a more discouraging message. Higher prices will likely last well into next year if not beyond. Inflation is starting to look like that unexpected and unwanted house guest who just won't leave. For months, many economists had sounded a reassuring message that a spike in consumer prices, something that had been missing in action in the US for a generation, wouldn't stay long. It would prove transitory in the soothing words of Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell and White House official as the economy shifted from virus related chaos to something closer to normalcy. Yet, as any American who has bought a carton of milk, a gallon of gas, or used car could tell you, inflation has settled in, and the economists are now voicing a more discouraging message. Higher prices will likely last well into next year, if not beyond. On Wednesday, the government said its consumer price index soared 6.2% from a year ago, the biggest 12-month jump since 1990. It's a large blow against the transitory narrative, said Jason Foreman, who served as the top economic advisor in the Obama administration. Inflation is not slowing, it's maintaining a red hot pace. And the sticker shock is hitting where families tend to feel it most. At the breakfast table, for instance, bacon prices are up 20% over the past year, egg prices are nearly 12%. Gasoline has surged 50%, buying a washing machine or a dryer will set you back 15% more than it would have a year ago. Used cars 26% more. Although pay sharply for many workers isn't nearly enough to keep up with prices, last month average hourly wages in the United States after accounting for inflation actually fell 1.2% compared with October 2020. Economist at Wells Fargo Joe grimly said that the Labor Department CPI, the Consumer Price Index, should stand for Consumer Pain Index. Unfortunately for consumers, especially lower wage households, it all coinciding with their high spending needs right before the holiday season. The price squeeze is escalating pressure on the Fed to shift more quickly away from years of easy money policies, and it poses a threat to President Joe Biden, congressional Democrats, and their ambitious spending plans. What caused the price hike? Much of this flip slide for very good news slammed by COVID 19. The US economy collapsed in the spring of 2020 as lockdown took effect. Business closed or cut hours and consumers stayed away as a health precaution. Employers slashed 22 million jobs, economic output plunged at a record shattering 31% in annual rate in last year's April June quarter. Everyone braced for more misery, companies cut investment, restocking was put off, and a brutal recession ensued. Yet, instead of sinking into a prolonged downturn, the economy staged an unexpected, rousing recovery fueled by massive government spending and a wave of emergency moves by the Fed. By spring, the rollout of vaccine had emboldened consumers to return to restaurants, bars, and shops. Suddenly, businesses had to scramble to meet demand. They couldn't hire fast enough to plug job openings, a near record 10.4 million in August, or buy enough supplies to fill customer order. As business roared back, ports and freight yards couldn't handle the traffic. Global supply chains became snagged. Cost rose and companies found that they could pass along those higher costs in the form of higher prices to consumers, many of whom had managed to sock away a ton of savings during the pandemic. A sizable chunk of the inflation we are seeing is the inevitable result of coming out of the pandemic, said Foreman, now an economist at the Harvard Kennedy School. Foreman suggested, though, that misguided policy played a role too. Policymakers were so intent on staving off economic collapse that they systematically underestimated inflation, he said. They poured kerosene on the fire. A flood of governing spending, including President Joe Biden's 1.9 million trillion coronavirus relief package with its $1,400 check to most households in March, overstimulated the economy, Foreman said. Inflation is a lot higher in the United States than it is in Europe, he noted. Europe is going through the same supply shocks as the United States is, the same supply chain issues, but they didn't do nearly as much stimulus. In a statement Wednesday, Biden acknowledged that the inflation hurts Americans' pocketbooks and reversing this trend is a top priority for me. But he said that his 1 trillion infrastructure package, including spending on roads, bridges, and ports, would help ease supply bottlenecks. Thank you.